Hello YouTube, this is Darkon633 and today I'm bringing a review of the Transformers Robots in Disguise 2015 Minicon Deployer, Decepticon Fracture, and Airazor. Now upon getting this figure, I didn't have many expectations since I actually been avoiding a lot of the other reviews for this figure and various other things, only because I was really looking forward to the Airazor and Fracture set just because this is the only technical deluxe scale or Fracture in the Robots in Disguise 2015 toy line. Now, it is kind of a disappointing figure. I understand it's supposed to be a kid's line and so on, but the things that Hasbro has done for this line is very questionable, to the point that I'm not even sure if they're even doing it correctly for the kids in the first place now, and it's kind of depressing. But overall, I think this figure is okay. It's probably a really fun toy for kids, but as a collector, this might not be everyone's cup of tea. And you'll see exactly why it is in a minute. But anyways, I got this at Target for around $20. So technically you're spending about $15 for a deluxe scale Transformer along with the Minicon, which is $5. That's what technically comes out as the $20 price to begin with. But anyways, before we go into anything else, we'll get a look at the box. Now the box is very Voyager-esque, I can say, just the way it's designed for the size. It does come with a plastic tray, which, well, not tray, but the plastic trees like in model kits that hatch this figure actually inside. The back, it just shows you a bunch of the features and so on. And it's weird because the promotional images actually show that this is actually facing down, even though the arm is in the same position as if it was just normal. And you'll see what I mean in a minute, what's wrong with that. It does transform in 5 steps, so there isn't a whole lot of transformation steps you're going to expect for this guy, since sadly he's mostly gimmick. Shows that Drift is another figure in the line, which I'll probably get just for the sake of the Minicon, even though the figure I know just doesn't look too impressive. But anyways, that's pretty much it for the box. We'll now go on to the accessories and the contents of the box. Outside of the box, you pretty much just get Fracture here, and you also get the Minicon, which is Airazor, and then a bunch of, little parts for Airazor. And now, I'll be back to get a little close-up of the figure so we can go ahead with transformation and the gimmicks that he has. And now we have a better situated camera here. We'll now be moving on to the articulation points of Fracture, which unfortunately you're really not going to get a whole lot from this figure. First, one of his arms at least can swivel, can bend in and out, but that's it, no elbows, which is a shame. And his shoulders do have some movement due to the transformation. The other arm, unfortunately, is stuck on a spring-loaded gimmick, so that is a bit of a shame that it's stuck with that really stupid gimmick. It's a cool gimmick, but it really hinders the figure quite a bit. And then it bends in and out like normal, and because of that, no wrist swivels causes it so that the hand is actually stuck in this position, since he's actually splaying his hands out in order to shoot the Minicon that he actually did on the show. His legs, for some reason, are on mushroom pegs, which could have done a whole lot better if there actually were ball joints. And he's got a knee joint, which is pretty useless by the way it's designed, and his feet can pivot just a bit, but once again, most of the articulation of the legs, unfortunately, are quite useless because of the gimmick. So basically, he does come with the Minicon, which does transform without the use of an automorph, which is good. But before we go into the transformation for Airazor, we're just going to activate the gimmick on the figure. First, you need to place the Minicon onto this piece here. Make sure that you're on a hard surface so that this can actually activate. And then, what's going to happen is that this piece is going to turn around. So you can see the hand is turning along with it. And then it'll fire. Hopefully I'll get it on camera, I just don't want it to fly off to space. There. So as you can see, this piece pops out, because basically happening is that this is pushed down, and then with a very powerful spring, it fires. So that's pretty much it for the gimmick. Now for transformation of this guy, it's really simplistic, even for an average day Transformers toy. It's one of the most simplistic I've seen in a while. Basically what you gotta do is pull these around, and it's not going to peg into anything. It just kind of lazily just sits there, which is a shame. And it can only barely hide the face. As you can see, the face is mostly still visible. And there isn't really any clear way to put it down better. You're going to bend the feet inward, and it doesn't actually pull out all the way. As you can see, if you do, it makes the leg pop out. So, well, not leg, but the foot. So, pretty much only goes that far, which is weird. Then you're going to snap these together. As you can see. And then you're going to bend this upward, and you're going to make sure that the hands go into these little gaps on the side there. Same thing with the other side. And then, to finish out the transformation, what you're going to do next is, first I need to get these situated since they do get out of place at times. What you're going to do next is, there's this little empty gap here. This is going to peg into it and lay this down. And there you have him in his very lazy bike mode. Now, the bike mode is kind of passable since, if I remember correctly, he did have another alt mode before changing into the bike mode. It's been a while since I've seen the series, so I don't remember exactly what happened. But it does have a cool kind of sidecar look, and I think the gimmick works a lot better in vehicle mode than it does in robots mode. He does have two wheels on the bottom, but they're just plastic, and they do their purpose enough, I guess. It doesn't really roll very well. And when you activate the gimmick in this mode, basically just put in the Minicon like normal. But this time, as I showed earlier, the piece here is going to stay flat. And then when you press the button on top, it's going to fire the Minicon. So here we go. Hopefully, let's look at it on camera. I'm trying to get it into a better position. Maybe it's better this way, actually. So it's going to fire like this with a very powerful spring, and it works a lot better in vehicle mode than it ever did in robot mode. But that's pretty much it for Fracture himself. You can put any Minicon there that's a Decepticon torpedo shaped, but none of the Autobot ones will actually fit on that area because of the way that the actual pieces that are holding the Minicon are not the same size. But anyways, he does have this really weird torpedo mode, as I mentioned earlier. And to transform it, you just pull this, and you kind of need to fiddle around with the legs, which is somewhat points of articulation, but that's pretty much all you're getting with the Minicons. And it's a shame since it would have done a lot better if they had points of articulation. But anyways, other than that, here is Airazor in his robots mode. And he only barely resembles the one on the show. Obviously, it does have a lot of paint missing, and not sure how well that's coming in. He does have a very small head that's hard to see, which isn't really painted, which is a shame. It does have a little bit of paint, but it's hard to see on camera. And then, what's cool is that you can actually attach these pieces onto him. And we're back. Anyways, here's a close-up of Airazor with all the armor pieces attached on. Now, the reason why I wasn't able to get the other pieces attached is because I accidentally picked up the wrong color pieces, since I actually get confused between which pieces go to who at times. But here's pretty much Airazor all together with the armor. As you can see, it looks kind of strange, actually, with all the armor on. And obviously, this is not show accurate in any means, and it's just another way of playability. Now, I would have preferred if they actually put in articulation instead of these armor pieces, but for some reason, I guess Hasbro decided to put the budget in the pieces instead. What's cool is that the pieces are easily removable, and they stay on pretty well. And what's also cool is that these actually stay in place when transforming. Now, not all the versions of the Minicons do this, since some actually, you do need to take out the parts in order to transform fully. But for this and a couple of the others that I've seen that I have from the first wave, you can still keep the armor pieces on while transforming with no problems. As you can see, here he is fully transformed back into his missile mode with the parts on, and works pretty well. We're just going to remove the parts and show Airazor now close up with all the pieces off. And hopefully it'll get better on camera now that we're actually close up. And this piece likes to stay on pretty well on mine, so... Okay, I'm going to remove all the armor components. And then put Airazor back in his robot mode. So you can see these figures are quite simplistic, and they could have done a whole lot better if they actually went ahead and worked with the articulation points. Paint's something that I pretty much expect to this date that we're not going to expect a whole lot, but articulation really would have done these figures a lot more justice. But overall, I still think the design of Airazor is pretty nice, and I still like it for what it is. And now we're just going to go talk a little bit more about Fracture here. Now, I can't completely recommend this figure. I could see why a lot of collectors would be kind of against this, since he doesn't have much points of articulation, and most of it is pretty much gimmick all throughout the figure. Even to the point the Minicon is quite gimmick by the way it transforms with not really an automorph gimmick since it is still manual, but it all transforms on its own with one step, and a lot of these figures would have done a lot better with the actual articulation points in mind. Now, it's unknown at this point in time if Fracture will ever get a full-on deluxe release, so unfortunately, this might be the only release for the character in the technical deluxe scale, since he is pretty close to the deluxe scale. Now, I'm still a bit disappointed what Hasbro's doing this time around, since the designs of the Decepticons of the show were quite cool, but with the limited amount of release throughout the line altogether and just non-stop repaints of the main figures, it is a bit of a worrisome thing what Hasbro is thinking for this line. Hopefully they'll pick up soon, since Robots in Disguise is still playing via the Cartoon Network and everything. I just hope that things will pick up soon. Other than that, this line's been kind of a hit or miss at this point. But anyways, please comment, subscribe, and check on Hirotaku for the latest in Hero News. Also, check out the following channels that link down below, including the WRW podcast. And also check me out on Twitter under Darkon633. And hopefully, we'll get some really good Robots in Disguise toys in the near future. Anyways, I'll see you YouTube. Bye.